Well, that was great.
We did that when we did the first.
So what, Judith is the big... Judith!
This advances it.
So you're the big champ. You're the big
That's
champ.
true, yes. My strategy was to scissors.
Yeah, congratulations. Yeah.
I like that. It doesn't make me that sad about losing.
On to the Olympics. Okay, well, that puts everything in perspective. I'm not sure what kind of perspective. Well, so we're going to sort of shift here a little bit more to Kennedy School mode of panel discussion. But I'm going to make some introductory comments. We're going to introduce each of the panelists. Yeah, I'm going to make some introductory comments, introduce each of the panelists. Each one will have 7 minutes to make an opening presentation. Then they'll have a chance to respond to each other, and then we'll open it up to everybody. And then in the end, they'll have 2 minutes to close. Okay? So, oh, and our timer. Where's our timer? Okay, this is our timer right here, and she will let you know when you have...
When you have 2 minutes left, 1 minute left, and then move on is a kind way of saying please stop.
Yeah, so move on means please stop. Okay. So the panel topic, mobilization and organization. What do they mean? What's their connection? And what's the challenge in dealing with them? In the last year, we've witnessed multiple examples of effective mobilization, motivating people to turn out for a specific action, series of actions, rallies, public events in Tunisia, Egypt, Syria, Spain, Quebec, New York, Washington, and elsewhere on behalf of a variety of economic, political, educational, and environmental claims. Many were surprisingly successful in bringing down a regime, in changing public discourse, in some cases helping win an election. Social media has also played a major role in these mobilizations. Organization, on the other hand, refers to the transformation of mobilization into the organized capacity to devise strategy, make decisions, develop leadership, and sink down roots in broad constituencies, capable, for example, of winning elections, influencing public policy, and building new institutions. Most notably in Egypt, for example, or in Tunisia, mobilization led by young liberal activists opened the way to electoral success by faith-based organizations with deep community roots. Today's panelists represent a wide range of experience dealing with this tension in different political, social, and cultural contexts. And we're going to ask them in a few moments to address we've asked them to address their remarks to 3 questions. One, why do you do what you do? That's in personal terms. What does mobilization versus organization mean in your context? And what key lessons can you share with us about their relationship or moving from one to the other or the tension, so forth? And then we'll open it up. So let me now introduce our folks. On the far left, well, no, just
yes.
Yes.
That's very long.
all right. To my left, Leila Hilal grew up in Petoskey.
Petoskey, Michigan.
Yeah, Petoskey, Michigan. The Michigan caucus here. Her father, a physician, immigrated to the U.S. from Syria in the early '60s, where he met her mother, a nurse. She attended Evergreen State College in Washington. Moved to Chicago. Oh, was there Evergreen? Oh, moved to Chicago to work for the People's Law Office. After which she earned her law degree at SUNY Buffalo and an LLM here at Harvard Law School. After law school, she clerked to the Constitutional Court in South Africa, practiced law in New York, and then moved to Ramallah in 2002, where she began serving as legal advisor to the Palestinian Negotiations Department and later the Constitutional Committee. In 2009, she relocated. We had a little discussion about this. It seems that she was actually deported from Palestine and relocated in Amman and went to work with the U.S. Palestine Refugee Agency. She now lives in D.C. and directs the Middle East Task Force of the New America Foundation. Let's welcome Leila Hilal. I'm going to introduce all the panelists, then we'll then they'll. Our next panelist, Max Berger, grew up in Westboro, Mass., where his father ran a manufacturing company and his mom ran a Jewish community center. He began organizing in high school against the war in Iraq, which led him to the Howard Dean campaign in 2003, where he became an online organizer, and then did youth GOTV work in the 2004 general election, and then went off to college, to Reed College. And emerging from Reed, has had a series of organizational leadership roles in Progressive Change Campaign Committee, the J Street Organization, Rebuild the Dream, and he enlisted in the Occupy Wall Street movement September 25th, the first week of the campaign, and worked with that campaign and is working now on this National Student Power Convergence. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's welcome Max. Phil, I'm never quite sure how to say your last name. It's Arano.
Aranyanu.
Aranyanu.
Got it.
Wow. I didn't. Okay. So Phil Aranyanu grew up in Ridgewood, New Jersey, where his parents had immigrated from Romania. His father serving as an energy engineer and his mom as a computer programmer. In high school physics class, he learned about climate change, which turned him into an activist. This became his issue, and he organized his first action in high school, a no-car day. Attending Middlebury College, he joined with 6 other students and environmental activist Bill McKibben to launch the Step Up campaign in 2007, which became 350.org, mobilizing 5,200 events in 181 countries in 2009 as a lead-up to the Copenhagen meetings. Phil now serves as the U.S. campaign director for 350.org, that played a major role in the pipeline effort that at least stopped the pipeline for the time being. So let's welcome Phil. To my right, I'll just say Arthur. Arthur. No, I can't do it. Arthur Müller grew up in Strasbourg, France, where his parents were both are theater directors. He attended the École Normale Supérieure in Paris, turned away from studies in political philosophy to come to Harvard, to come to Harvard as a visiting grad student in 2008, and found himself at the Kennedy School confronted with the question, well, if you're so unhappy with things in France as they are, why not change them? Exposed to the grassroots campaigning in the 2008 Obama campaign, he subsequently joined with his colleague, Guillaume Liget, to figure out how to adapt this approach to French politics. Taking day jobs with McKinsey, they experimented with canvassing in some of the most impoverished French communities. And in 2012, they were offered the opportunity to manage François Hollande's campaign for the field program for François Hollande's campaign for president, which they did, and developed the largest and most effective grassroots mobilization effort in French history, at least since 1789, and won. So let's welcome Arthur. And last but not least, Sergej Popovic grew up in Belgrade, Serbia, where his parents served as well-known journalists. He entered politics as a bass guitar player in his brother's rock band, which was a venue for opposition to the Milosevic war politics in the 1990s. He became an activist at 19. At 23, won a chair in the Belgrade City Assembly. His activism and electoral success turned into movement building from 1996, in 1996-97, as a leader of Otpor, the student movement that eventually brought Milosevic down in 2000. After 3 years in Parliament, he joined others to form Canvas, an organization that has trained activists in 37 countries, especially in how to bring down dictators nonviolently. As, for example, their work with the April 6th movement, one of the key mobilizers of the Egyptian mobilization that brought down Mubarak. Let's welcome Sergej. So, Leila, would you get us started?
Sure. And my greatest credential that you didn't mention is that I'm a friend of Nisreen Haj Ahmed.
Oh, well.
And through Nisreen, I've learned a lot about community organizing, and I have just a lot of great respect for all the work that you do. I myself I would cast myself more as an observer, researcher, and commentator on events. So I will try to spend 7 minutes and speak within 7 minutes about the Arab revolutions and the question of mobilizing versus organizing. I have been working in the Middle East, as Professor Gans said. Marshall.
We're working on trying to get Nisreen to say it. Yeah.
As Marshall said, I came through it through the Palestinian part, but I'm Syrian origin. I've spent a lot of time in Syria. But in the past 18 months, I've been doing a lot of researching and analysis around the revolutions and uprisings throughout the Middle East and North Africa. And so I think that this question of mobilizing versus organizing is particularly important in the context of the Arab revolutions, because I think that we have seen a very successful effort in many countries of getting people out to the streets to protest the continued continuation of authoritarian leader. And that leader is served as a symbol of oppression that people can mobilize collectively against. So popular mobilization for street demonstrations has been the easy part. And what has been harder is transforming that effort into a sustained activism for transformation from autocracy to democracy, however one wants to define it. And I think the only country that is in, out of all the Middle East, North Africa, that is in a state of democratic consolidation would be Tunisia. Whereas Egypt, on the other hand, is I think we can say, is still in a revolution, or maybe just has begun its political transition. In 18 days, it brought down an entrenched dictator, but in 18 months, it still has the same military regime that essentially was part of the ruling regime. So it hasn't gotten rid of the regime, and so this question really is very important, I think, in the Arab world and in the context of the Arab revolution, because I think, and then you can also look at Syria, which has descended into civil war and presents a huge contrast to the nonviolent movements in Egypt and Tunisia. So there's all of these complexities that are coming through the Arab world, and we have to know that political transitions are going to take a very long time, and we know that because of history. The Arab world is not the only place that has experienced, not the only region that has experienced transition. So we just know from historical perspective that transitions take a long time. We know that they're going to be messy. In Egypt, the military rulers have issued decree here, decree there, giving protesters, responding to protesters, giving them compromises, and then taking it away with a decree there. So there are no rules in Egypt in particular, but it's messy, and there isn't this tradition of democratic, pluralistic institutions which enable democracy. And so when I think about this question of mobilizing versus organizing, I see that in terms of building capacity or organizational capacity for activists to sort of enable their societies to move towards closer to a tradition of institutions that enable democracy and that will prevent the counter-revolution. It is less interesting. So it's less interesting